Well, there is a madcap global race to try to lead the AI industry, and there is a madcap race that is just as much of a scramble to try to regulate and get control of AI before it spirals out of control as well. So with me to discuss that today is Enza Iannopollo, who is Principal Analyst at Forrester. She's going to be presenting a session called A Fun, Yes Really, Crash Course in AI Regs and Frameworks at the Forrester Security and Risk event next week. Enza, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So there are a lot of AI regulations that are in discussion across the world right now. There's certainly the European Union's AI Act that was the leader, but there's lots of them that are being discussed on the state level. What are the ones that you are following that are setting a standard that we should know about right now?
You are very, very right. There are so many that are in discussion today. I think the EU AI Act is definitely comprehensive because it covers different aspects of AI and including generative AI, of course, and it talks to a very broad audience. It's also binding in many ways. So, those are kind of requirements that companies will have to follow. It's very broad in scope. This make me feel like there is probably a good chance that the European regulation becomes a little bit that sort of global standard, a little bit like the GDPR for privacy did previously. But of course, there is also the regulation in Colorado that is definitely following a very specific set of high-risk use cases. There are those that have consequential decisions on individuals. So anything that affects an individual from a financial, legal, or broader social kind of context is something that regulation is looking at. And this idea of regulating these consequential decisions, fairness, bias, discrimination, those kind of concepts is definitely something that I see a lot of in different types of regulation. And then there is another area, the one of employment. A lot of, especially in the US, a lot of state regulation try to tackle the use of AI in the workplace, avoiding situation of, shall we say, surveillance in a way, but also using AI to determine recruiting processes and decisions or performance reviews and decisions. So that is another area where I think there is a lot happening and definitely one to be watching.
So it sounds very much like there are a variety of different things that are being, a variety of different types of things related to AI that are being potentially regulated, related to both the use of AI and the development of AI. Is that an accurate representation, you think?
I would say so. There is an aspect that is, as you say, much more the use, and that is, for example, all the discussion, mainly the discussion about the consequential decisions, and making sure that that decision is right and is fair, and is not biased, and so forth. And this really has to do with the use of AI. But also, we have seen, if you think about California, for example, the bill that then at the end wasn't signed into law there was a lot that had to do with the development of AI and the safety of the system itself in the way it was engineered and developed. And then we come to Europe, where probably the regulation over here is trying to bring together those two aspects of AI, but I think that is a good description if you think about the use and the effect and trying to mitigate the risk on the effect of the use of technology. And one side is very much looking in a preemptive manner at the safety of the system and avoiding, in a way, that kind of bias, discrimination, poor decision from the inside rather than regulating the output, if you like.
No, there's that makes sense. The safety. I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the one that you were referring to in California was SB 1047, which was the Safe and Secure Innovation I'm probably not going to get this right, for Frontier AI Models Act, right, which was very focused on the LLMs and had some resistance from it. So if I'm an enterprise CIO or CISO, and I'm thinking about wanting to deploy some new AI tool within my company, I'm concerned about the safety issues. I'm concerned about the ethical issues. I'm concerned about the data governance issues, and maybe I'm not being regulated by this on the state level. I'm not being regulated on the national level just yet, but I do care about these things. Where do I start? Are there risk frameworks? Are there, is there anything out there to help me right now?
Indeed. I would say if you're a CIO or a CISO, go get your legal counsel with you, because this is a thing that we see. A lot of organizations have been doing this work already. First of all, look for who is going to help you within your organization. We have seen a lot of multifunctional, multidisciplinary committees being put together. And it is very important in this context. Already we have discussed some aspects around the effect of using the technology, and those effects are on your customers. It might have implication around the employee, kind of protection, consumer protection. There are aspects that may be specific to the use of personal data, so it's the privacy aspect that matters. There are very specific technical security measures that you want to put in place, but also you need to be aware of data governance. Data quality, for example, has been a very big topic. And then you have your data science team that is experimenting with the technology, trying to find the right use case for it. So this means really that you need to bring a lot of people with you in that room to try and understand what it makes sense to do. So from a business perspective, and this conversation, especially on generative AI, has been very common. What is the right use case? What is the right ROI that I want to measure? And then on the other side, there is the risk side of things. So put together that committee. It is very important. Again, legal, IT, security, privacy, data science, HR. Those are teams you want to have around you. Business units. That is also very important. There are some cases where the representation of the business units is permanent on those committees. And there are other times that I've seen organizations changing, like having a temporary engagement with the different business units to get from them exactly a better understanding of the business case they are building, how they've been using the technology, where are the risks, which are the risks that they've identified. So I think building that team is very important. The number two, I would say, the actual number two is define a governance process that to do two things. One thing is really around you need as an organization to start to put your arms around all the different projects that are happening. And so you want to create what we call an inventory of those projects, but you need to have an understanding of what is going on in my organization, what are people doing. Again, it's not just risk management. We have been really seeing a lot of organizations scaling projects once these projects have shown to a potential. So very often you don't start from this strategy around AI where you have already identified your use cases, the expectation of goals, and the ROI. Very often, especially on the generative AI side, was about what is working within different teams. Innovation can come from everywhere. And so you want to make sure that if there is something that is actually working somewhere in the organization, you are aware of it. And maybe that is the project you're going to scale. So this idea of the inventory and creating a process that people are going to say, we are working on this. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is what we are working. This is our data that we are using. Gives you that first idea of how big is this in my organization? How much budget will I need for governance, for compliance, right? And this is the also you start a risk assessment. You need to know what you need to assess before you start doing that. So I think those two things, bring the people together, create even a basic process, an initial process for that governance. Tell people to come and kind of share what they are doing with you. I think that really what you want to do first.
It sounds wonderful, but it also sounds like a lot to do. So, and it sounds like a lot to do in a relatively small amount of time. Does it seem that way to you, in that before generative AI, a lot of these things were being discussed, but it seems like since generative AI came around, these questions of trustworthy AI in particular did not gain quite as much. They didn't accelerate quite as quickly as they have in the past year and a half, let's say. With the people that you're speaking to, do they feel up to that task? Are they moving as quickly as you've just described to me right now? Or do people feel a little bit behind already?
It certainly has been very, very quick since generative AI became a thing. The discussion around trustworthy AI started a long time ago. I believe the work of the European Union around the principle trustworthy AI was published in 2019. They started working in 2017. So it was a long time into the process. Even the writing on the act was, took a long time. And then 2023, and there was nothing around general purpose AI and generative AI. Even the regulators have to run to put something in that regulation that they didn't necessarily anticipate was gonna happen. So even if they thought about trustworthy AI for much longer, the generative AI wave took everybody by surprise. So this happened with the regulators. It happens with, of course, with companies that had to really start to work around with this technology very differently. As I said, a lot of times is really this innovation coming from within the organization and from places that you hadn't anticipated it would happen. This is something we have discussed often with innovation, but has never happened really this way, with this also velocity. So organizations are challenged in many ways, exciting because the opportunity is in front of their eyes. They can see that this can transform a lot of things. And some of the first numbers, some of those companies that have published some of the results around the use of generative AI with chatbots, and if it works, it's really impressive. We also know that if it doesn't work, is very bad, and there are examples of a lot of things gone wrong. If nothing else, wasted resources. So you want to think about it. But what struck me is the fact that we are walking a path that we really don't know, both on the risk side and on the more kind of technology and business side. We are all trying to find the right approach to deal with something that at the moment is new for all of us. And so I think then companies inevitably feel that they are behind because it's moving so fast. And at the same time, you really are trying to, find a way to move forward. And there is a lot of trial and error going on, I would say. And again, we are expecting to see that. So on one side, yes, they feel they are behind. They know that pretty much everybody is on the same boat. And there is more acceptance on the fact there is really trial and error this time. And you want to get it right, but there is not a well-known recipe for it. So I would say this is the general sense that I feel.
Well, Enza, it's a lot to think about, and I appreciate you giving us a taste of this apparently fun, really fun crash course in AI regulations and frameworks, because right now it feels more exhausting than fun. But any final thoughts about this before I let you go today?
I'm gonna go back to some the framework. Of course, there are some that are available today to everybody. There is the NIST AI a risk management framework that has been used by a lot of clients. There is the ISO 42001, again, that has been used for the purpose of risk assessments. And there are new frameworks that are appearing. There is the EU AI Act in there. There is a risk framework that also can really help organizations to think through the risks linked to business use cases. This is the fun part. It's less about the technology. It's very much thinking about your business context, the use cases that you have, and then trying to assess the risks of those and regulate the risk of those. So I would say start from the risk frameworks that are available. There is a very good place to start. And then I would say that is my final kind of really thought. We do risk management, we do compliance, all of that is very boring, but those are necessary steps, not just to avoid a fine. These are necessary steps if we really want to build and maintain that promise of trustworthy AI. There is only, trust is really essential if we want society to embrace the technology. If you want to be able to realize from even a kind of business profit perspective what AI is promising, we need to have trust from people. We know that there is a lot of concerns around companies not being transparent when they are using AI. There is a lot of concern of decisions that are going to affect consumers in ways that are not fair. So we need to make sure, as a community, that we are bringing to life that promise of trustworthy AI, so then people can feel that they trust the technology, that there is for them an opportunity actually also to verify that a certain decision was made in fairness. And so I think the goal at the end of the day is the one of trust. We know trust has a lot of positive benefits for businesses, loyalty, advocacy, repeat business. All of those variables really are supported by strong customers and consumer trust. And I think that at the end of the day, this is exactly what we are trying to do with all this risk management and compliance, is achieving that promise of trust and trustworthy AI. So as you are approaching this work, it might feel overwhelming, might be very boring, but again, it's an essential part of a successful strategy around AI. So is a good thing to do.
I don't think it sounds boring at all, and I really appreciate you taking the time today. Enza Iannopollo from Forrester. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.